We're here again with Talk with the Mayor as Zelenskyy finishes his speech before the United States Congress, making really, really nice with Nancy Pelosi, with whom I'm sure he has a very close relationship with Nancy's husband. And he's holding the American flag now. Very mixed feelings about this. I mean, truly, the Ukrainian people are wonderful people. They're considerably better educated than you probably many expect. Extremely, at least in the eastern half of the country, extremely affectionate toward the United States of America. Very much share many, many of our values. Are being attacked and brutalized by the Russian bullies, by Putin. However, as I look at Zelenskyy, I know what he knows, and what he knows is that for many, many years, his government was probably one of the most corrupt in the world, is one of the most corrupt in the world, and shared enormous amounts of money with American politicians, many of whom are standing now and applauding for him. He has the complete record of all the bribes taken by our president. He knows exactly why that was done. It was done in order to fix the case against Burisma, to help Mykola Zlochevsky keep his $27 billion company. He knows that his prior president, who he defeated, received in that transaction multi-billion dollars in bribes, and hasn't had the courage to prosecute him or reveal it. That doesn't mean they should be attacked. It doesn't mean they should be occupied by Russia. It doesn't mean that it's in our interest to have that happen. It does mean we should be very careful about how much money we give them and how we give it, and how much accountability is attached to it, because it would be extremely unusual for amounts of money like that to go to Ukraine and it not end up in the hands of many, many of the oligarchs, some of whom, one of whom controls him. The one that controls him, Mr. Kolomoisky, is the probably premier money launderer in Eastern Europe. Could probably tell you exactly where Joe Biden's offshore bank accounts are located. The woman who wanted to give that information was never contacted by the FBI, even though she was under a threat of death. We gave that information to the FBI at the request of an attorney general that I thought was legitimate, Barr, in January, I believe it was January of 2020. We were very hopeful, Bob Costello, myself, were very hopeful that they would contact her. People on her behalf were beseeching us to please get someone to her, and she would prove what she had before she asked for anything, meaning she would give them the bank accounts, or at least some of them, so they could check out her bona fides. And she also had a list of 5 witnesses that she said could corroborate what she was going to say, which included offshore bank accounts, I believe 2, involving Biden, and others involving some of the other people in that chamber. There was every reason to believe her. She had a very, very high position in the company. If I do much more, I probably reveal who she is. I'm sure they probably know it, but I just don't want to give them any help, because these people do commit murder. And the organized crime group in Ukraine is no different than the organized crime group in Russia. They're just as corrupt. They're just as homicidal. It's not the people of Ukraine. People of Ukraine have to endure this. We, unfortunately, in the United States, have not only permitted it, we've extended it by participating in it. When you talk to them about their corruption, they talk to me about ours. And prime on their list is our president, who went there 14 times when he was vice president, and all of Ukraine knew why. He was collecting money. So this is a strange moment for people in the United States Congress to be standing up and applauding. Guess the people of Ukraine, yes. Zelenskyy, maybe. The fact that this is going to fix what's going on there, I don't know. And the reality being that I don't know if there's, I don't know how many intelligent people are in that chamber, but anyone intelligent in that chamber knows that if American people hadn't been foolish enough to elect Joe Biden, this never would have happened in the first place. All those Ukrainian people would be alive today. This happened because of the cowardice that Putin detected in Afghanistan, the extraordinary withdrawal, leaving many Americans and those who helped us behind to be murdered, leaving behind $85 billion in arms, right now being used to kill people who helped America and some Americans. And also the extraordinary act, which doesn't get enough attention in this country, of giving up the Bagram Air Base, which was just modernized, a very effective air base, but it had such an extraordinary characteristic that made it enormously valuable to us and enormously dangerous to China. It was 400 miles from China. Too little discussion of that, particularly with regard to the question, just how compromised is Joe Biden by the extraordinary millions that he and his family received from China. I mean, they received a lot more in China than Ukraine. And I guess one of the things Zelenskyy can say is, we were sort of at the bottom of the totem pole in paying Biden off. Moscow gave him more and China gave him a lot more. But he's kind of helped all of them in a way, right? When you think about it. He's given Ukraine a lot of money to fight this war. One questions how much actually gets to fighting the war. Number two, he's given Russia just exactly what they needed to revive themselves, and that is someone who can get arms for them and is the biggest expert in the world in doing that by trading a basketball player for a merchant of death who is an expert in obtaining arms and has great experience in doing that for Russia, just at a time in which they were having difficulty rearming themselves. So Russia could say thank you for that. That was quite a mismatch in terms of the trade that was done. And China couldn't have done better for their investment in Biden. They got rid of an air base 400 miles from them. They haven't been even questioned about their role in spreading COVID around the world. Last time Biden met with him, he didn't seem to have the courage to bring up fentanyl, which is killing record amounts of young Americans and making China extraordinarily wealthy. It almost all comes from China, and it goes through the cartels that have been empowered by Biden to just come into the United States at will. That's the reason we've had 2 record years in a row of American deaths from overdoses. All that money is enriching China. So Biden's paid his debt back to China. He's allowed them to become wealthy through killing us with fentanyl. He's allowed them to completely get away with the COVID massacre of the world. He's given up an air base 400 miles from their territory, which is an extraordinary strategic advantage that someday an American president is going to curse him for having given away. So to watch all this played out with a bunch of old fools clapping, I don't know. I do wish that Ukrainian people succeed and drive Putin out of Ukraine. I wish for them the freedom that they deserve. I wonder if they realize the role that Joe Biden plays in having this happen to them. I don't think, even saying, it would not have happened under Trump, don't think it would have happened under any president that was of sound mind, because I don't think any president of sound mind would have withdrawn from Afghanistan, not necessarily withdrawn from Afghanistan. That was a logical decision. You could agree with it or disagree with it, but it was a logical decision. The way he did it was extraordinarily, oh my goodness, the word inept would be too criminally negligent, displaying either some degree of mental illness or lack of judgment that if you're an enemy of this country, you'd be foolish not to take advantage of. And you can see from the moment it happened that Putin took advantage of it, tested him for months, while Biden gave the right response. We won't use troops. We won't use troops. We won't use troops, please. We won't use troops. We won't use troops. Now they're in there, and of course he's arming Ukraine, but he's also giving advantages to Russia by giving them someone to buy arms for them. And to watch Nancy Pelosi, I think now kissing him, I wonder where her husband is. I'm sure he knows Zelenskyy quite well. Oh, her son does too. Well, that's one thing. It'd be kind of interesting if he comes back in a few months and it's McCarthy sitting there, and not her. Particularly McCarthy and some of his members who know the corruption history as well, or almost as well as I do.
Mayor, thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the fastest hour on the internet. Of course, you can go to rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com to hear all of the interesting podcasts dating back a number of years now. And Mayor, what does the CS stand for?
Common sense.
So tonight, of course, you brought up McCarthy and which I guess you could say is the ongoing race for speaker. Now I want to say not all these sources are completely objective, but they are, I would consider them good sources, people that are in the know, have a lot of contacts on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
One is now saying that they don't feel that McCarthy has the votes locked up and that there is a strong chance he isn't speaker and that Scalise has to step in and that Scalise would easily have the votes.
Well, I think number one is probably pretty solid. He does not have it locked up. The opposition is remarkably intense, led by Andy Biggs. Interesting. They were both they were both cited by the phony committee, the crooked, dishonest, dishonorable, disgraceful committee, with some of the worst members of Congress in history on it. Certainly some of the biggest liars in congressional history. And boy, that is hard. When you lead the list of congressional liars like Shifty Schiff does, or Cheney, wow, you are a liar. But in any event, it's interesting. Biggs is opposing McCarthy, and both of them got referred by the committee, not for criminal sanctions, but for ethical sanctions in the House. It really is the height of hypocrisy for that committee to be citing anybody for ethical challenges when they've got Shifty Schiff sitting there who accused President Trump of not only being involved in Russian collusion, which turned out to be totally false and paid for, but also claims to have had direct evidence of it, which somehow no one's ever required him to produce. None of those cowardly morons sitting around him has ever required him to produce it. I mean, they just don't have the standing to refer anyone for ethical sanctions until they're thrown out of the House of Representatives for being liars and for trying to drive a legitimately elected president out of office based on a frame-up, which is what Russian collusion was, as well as the whole Ukrainian saga in which Shifty Schiff spent 1 hour just lying about and was proven to lie about it. And as I said, he also claims to have had direct evidence of Russian collusion with Trump, and we don't see any attempt to find out. I mean, no follow-up on that lie. So getting back to your original question, I just don't know the answer to that. I believe that McCarthy should get elected. I think that he has done enough to demonstrate that his legitimacy in leading a very, very aggressive Republican Party over the next couple of years. He's done a good job in getting them elected. He's done a good job in keeping them together. He hasn't always been as strong as I would like. I mean, I could find a few areas in which I would criticize him, particularly as Trump's lawyer, but not significant. Would I, if I could have 100% of everything, rather see Jordan there? Yeah, sure. But I also realize he got to hold that whole thing together, and he's a good choice, and I trust him. I can be wrong. I've been double-crossed before, but I think that it is worth not having this battle within. We've got so many battles within the party. Would I prefer Steve Scalise if there was nothing else at stake? Sure. Would I prefer Jordan even over Scalise? Yes. Do I think McCarthy was going to do a good job and is a good choice and he'll keep the party together? I do believe he will. So I think we should. I think it'd be better for the country and for the party if we, concentrated this battle on true traitors like, let's say like Romney, who should be, thrown out of the party. And Romney's a disgrace anyway. I mean, I took Romney's measure when I ran against him and, campaigned for him, and it was hard. I know him maybe in a different way than you do, but I mean, there's a guy that doesn't belong in the Republican Party. He doesn't belong in any party. He belongs in a party of two-faced liars. He's taken every position on every possible thing you could take a position on, and now the left loves him because he's against Trump.
So thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. Of course, so comment below, let us know if McCarthy doesn't have the votes and is forced, I guess, virtually off the ballot for Speaker, who would you like to see run for Speaker? Of course, Mayor, Republicans come into the new Congress with 222 seats. You need 218 for the race for Speaker. The vote is on January 3rd, so that's a very tight margin of
I think your source that says that Scalise would be a good compromise choice in the sense that there are a lot of people that probably would oppose Jim for being too Trump. I don't know. I mean, I'm too Trump, so they'd oppose me too. So I'm not criticizing Jordan in any sense. If I were voting, I would vote for Jordan. If I were to give you my political judgment of who would probably come out of it as the Speaker, and it would be certainly acceptable, that would be Steve Scalise. It would be a great Speaker. But I don't think the battle and the wounds and the division that'll create when we don't have that big a majority to start with, and we got to really keep it together, I just don't think it's worth it.
So Matt Gaetz of Florida.
I don't know why he's doing it.
Andy Biggs of Arizona,
Andy very well. Like Andy very much.
Do you know Ralph Norman of South Carolina?
Somewhat. I have great respect for him.
Bob Good of Virginia.
Not as well.
And Matt Rosendale, Montana.
Don't know him at all.
So those are the 5 they have vowed to.
There's no one
as
there
of
that
now.
there's no one there that I haven't endorsed. Well, some I don't know, but I mean,
Mr. Good of Virginia.
You name the first 3. I'm a big.
Gates, Biggs, Norman.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of
all 3 of them.
All 3 of them.
Trust them.
100%.
Staunch.
100%.
Conservatives. People
it's very hard for me to watch. Yeah.
So those are 3 of the 5 that, as of now,
and they're certainly not in any way irresponsible, crazy. How do they? I mean, like the left press wants to. I mean, they may have reasons that go into their relationship that I don't appreciate. I'm speaking from the outside. I just think the battle's not worth it. But
Reed says.
But if we ended up with Steve Scalise or Jordan as the speaker, would we be better off? Yeah. So that's, I mean, I just hope they know what they're doing and they don't divide the party over it.
Reed comments below. He really enjoys watching the mayor on these live streams, and it kind of reminds him of the fireside chat from back in the 40s.
Do you know that our demented president thinks that Roosevelt did those on television?
Whenever we bring up the
Roosevelt died
chats,
before there was television.
The mayor loved
this is the same guy who the other day told us that his uncle got the Purple Heart, and he actually gave it to his uncle because somehow it was never given to him, even though he deserved it. And his father brought it to his attention when he was made vice president, and then he did it after he was vice president. Problem is, both his father and uncle were dead when he became vice president, and we keep this guy as president. And he says things like this, and nobody pays attention to it. And then you wonder why we're in the kind of trouble we're in around the world. You wonder why this country, he was handed a country in a world that was in relative peace, and look at it now. I mean, he had Fat Boy in North Korea bottled up completely. Now that guy's lobbing missiles over Japan, and Japan's rearming, thank God, or arming. There's no way Putin would have attacked Ukraine, and look at the thousands and thousands of people have been killed as a result of that. And Xi Jinping figures he gained about 10 years on his goal of 2048 dominating the U.S. because whatever he says, Biden just bows his head. Never even had to ask to give up the airbase. He just gave it up, just sort of out of courtesy for all the money that China gave him. So it's a shame to see what's happened to the United States and the world with the terrible mistake we made in electing this guy. But it's really a shame to see the cowardice of that body that you saw there, including Republicans, not raising his infirmity, because that's a real issue. That's not a Republican or Democrat issue. A president of the United States has to be of sound mind. It's not just a button. It's all the other decisions that an insane president can make, or a president with lack of sound mind. Maybe that decision in Afghanistan came about because the man's demented. I mean, I didn't see really even the political motivation there. Some of them I see the political motivation. It's the movement toward communism that is going on in the people around him. The way he's making more and more of our people dependent. The way he has an open border, which is exactly what the Communist Party has advocated for the U.S. for 50 years. They just never thought they would get a president as weak and as anti-American as this one.
That's right. Mayor,
If you consider that the aim of communism is to wipe out nation, one of Marx and communists on down, one of the ways they attack you like an illness and a disease is they get rid of your nationality, because you're going to become a citizen of the international, of the world, which means the communist world. Now think of how this fits into Soros' worldview. And so what you got to do is you got to break down nation. That's what the Cultural Revolution was all about in China. Cultural revolution. Get rid of Chinese culture. In Russia, they got rid of Russian culture.
What takes its place in the?
Your dedication to world socialism.
So this was from the start. This was always a plan for global domination of this mindset, this way of life.
You have to get rid of Americanism to have global domination. If you are a dedicated American, if you believe in the sovereignty of the United States of America, then how are you going to have a one world government, which is what Soros wants and Klaus von Schwab. Klaus Schwab. That's what they want. They want we have a one world government, no U.S. Out with the U.S. If you're a nationalist, you're a Nazi. That's the beginning of it. That's the beginning of the propaganda. I mean, I have no idea where that came from. If you're a nationalist, if you love your country, you're a Nazi. Like hell, you're a Nazi. I love my country. I'm much further from being a Nazi than Joe Biden. I never pursued my political enemies and tried to put them in jail. That's what Nazis do. I don't believe in governing by dictate, which is what he did for the first 6 months that he was president. I wouldn't use the FBI as the Biden secret police. That's what Nazis do. Sounds like Joe's the Nazi. I mean, Joe is many of the things he accuses us of being. He accuses our country, our wonderful, beautiful country, of being systemically racist. The guy who's a racist is him. I never said I don't want my children to go to school in the jungle. I never said if you don't vote for me, you're not black. I never said that Barack Obama was the first clean black person to run for president.
Thanks for joining
us. I mean, you think about the racial comments that he makes. You can see a whole process with him, including some of the other Democrats, of projection. They accuse you of what they are. I mean, the whole bribery thing they accused Trump of with the president of Ukraine, which would have been disproven if they weren't covering up that laptop, is exactly what Biden did when he paid off Zelensky's predecessor in order to get Burisma off the hook and made a nice, cool $10 million for himself.
Thanks for joining us. America's Mayor Live. Rob from Sea Caucus.
You're not going to hear that as clearly anywhere else. Maybe Miranda Devine, maybe John Solomon, Senator Johnson. That's about it. A lot of them don't have the guts to tell you that. And they stand up and clap like that. I clap for the people of Ukraine. We'll clap once. Also, it wouldn't have been a bad idea to wear a tie, Zelenskyy, huh? Out of respect for this country. I mean, we know you're in a battle. We know you walk around like that when you're in a, but it wouldn't have been a bad idea to a little bit more formal.
He's asking for a lot of money, Mayor.
What?
He's asking for a lot of money. The least he could do is maybe put a tie on when asking for that kind of money.
He's not going to fool me into thinking he's poor. I know him better than you do. And I know his patron a lot better than you do. His patron is the premier money launderer in the world. Better than any Russian. Russians sometimes use him for money laundering, even though they hate each other. Kolomoisky, remember the name Kolomoisky. Major crook. He made Zelenskyy. Now, Zelenskyy may have broken from him. May have.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live. Rob from Sea Caucus says in 2024, he has 2 tickets he wants to see. Number 1, he wants to see Trump run with Mayor Giuliani as his running mate. If that's not in the cards, he'd like to see a Trump-Jordan ticket.
I would like to see a Trump-Jordan ticket, I think he'd do better with Jim Jordan than with me. I have no desire to be vice president or to run for office. I just have a desire to save my country. And,
you're more of a number 1 if you ask me, but you're more of a number 1.
This country is in terrible, terrible condition right now. It's being run by someone that almost is impossible to describe, or would have to be your worst nightmare. I mean, there was a column about 2 weeks ago in the Epoch Times, however you want to, it's spelled EPOCH, fabulous newspaper, by Victor Hansen Davis, is that his last name? Ted, you're not paying attention.
Say that again, Mayor.
Victor Hansen Davis?
Victor David Hansen.
Victor David Hansen.
I'm reading comments, Mayor.
Okay.
I'm always paying attention.
There was a great article by him. Basically, the thrust of it is you couldn't do it. You couldn't do much damage to the United States if you tried. And then he lists all the things that Biden has done. I'm not going to go through them all. We've been through them at different times, but it a very, very powerful article and tragic in many ways, because this is such a great country. And I don't think that ever time in my life that I ever imagined we'd have a president like this, or a group of people leading this country who combine dishonesty, lying constantly, financial corruption. I mean, you can't imagine how many of them are thieves. I mean, look at this guy who is the number one donor of money to that ridiculous political party is George Soros. George Soros wants to do away with American nationality. He hates American nationalism. He's put district attorneys, 40 of them, in places where people are getting murdered left and right. He's the cause of death and destruction in the Black community, probably worse than anyone ever. And he wants to have one world government. One world government's going to turn into a world dominated by China. Then the number two guy is this guy who stole people's money to give it to the Democrat Party.
Sam Bankman-Fried, Mayor.
I mean, they got anybody honest? I guess if you have a president that's been a 35-year crook, this is what you get. So why don't we get rid of the Democrat Party? The leadership, not the people. The people are wonderful people. And why do you want to be part of a party that basically the main thing it's associated with is slavery? Let's put it this way. There's no institution that's done more for slavery in the history of this country than the Democrat Party. Did you ever think of that? And maybe that's the reason why there's been so little progress in the poorest areas of Black communities and Black cities, because of the Democrat Party. They're represented by Democrats. All those Democrat congressmen, been there for years. You got almost a pattern. They're there for years. Community gets poorer. Community now is undergoing record levels of crime after years of their representation. And a lot of them have become somehow magically wealthy. I'm just thinking about Charlie Rangel.
What did you ever, when you were running for mayor, you ran, of course, the first time in 1989. So it would have been
Yeah, I ran against David Dinkins, who was the first Black mayor of New York, which is a wonderful thing, except for the fact that he hadn't filed his taxes in 4 years, and then gets caught with being involved in voting himself a big share of inner city broadcasting, in which he, Rangel, Percy Sutton, a bunch of others became millionaires.
Explain that.
The U.S. attorney didn't prosecute the case because he thought it would create too much disruption.
In short, how did that work?
The way it worked was when New York City became cable, they gave it to the city the Board of Estimate, which existed at the time, to decide how they'd break up the cable districts. So they ended up with about 7 or 8 cable districts, and they gave 2 of them to a company known as Inner City Broadcasting, the main stockholders of which were Charlie Rangel.
When you say give, they had basically the monopoly on cable for that district.
Yeah, and they did a deal with the other crooked assemblyman, borough presidents. Charlie Manis, who committed suicide, Meade Esposito, Stanley Friedman, who I put away in jail. They made a deal, and they all got a piece of it.
This is something that's talked about in news reports, but it's also discussed that it's also known that it wasn't.
Nobody will write about it because they're not going to write about it.
But it's known among people that were around at the time, and it isn't like a
David Dinkins, who is considered a very nice, sweet man, was a crook.
Wow, that's too bad.
One day, while he was borough president, he walked out of his office and told the secretary, "I'm a millionaire now." That was the money he got from Inner City Broadcasting.
It's one thing to
Then he forged a piece of paper pretending that he had given the money to his son, which the FBI could approve was forged because they had the paper below it that showed that it wasn't written at the time that it said it was written. And the U.S. attorney didn't prosecute the case. And he told people, I know this directly, I didn't prosecute it because it would have been too disruptive. Well, you're damn right it was too disruptive. It was too disruptive. And then we've had years and years of that kind of criminality. You want to know what holds those neighborhoods back? It's the lack of decent representation. Nobody represents them. You can't represent a place for 20 to 30 years and have it fall apart and expect that people aren't going to suspect there's something wrong with you.
Patrick Cunningham asks, this is a good question. This is someone that knows your history, Mayor. Why did you endorse Mario Cuomo in 1994? What beef did you have with Al D'Amato and George Pataki?
Well, I had a big beef with Al D'Amato. Al D'Amato attempted to get me as U.S. attorney to do favors for Roy Cohn and Roy Cohen's client, Fat Tony Salerno.
And who is Fat Tony Salerno?
Fat Tony Salerno was the head of the Genovese crime family. And I told Al D'Amato to go stick it up his little tiny, you know what. You want to know about Al D'Amato, pal?
So Al D'Amato was asking you as a prosecutor to go light, basically go easy on.
No, he wanted me to give Roy Cohen notice when I was going to arrest Fat Tony so he could turn himself in. Yeah, of course, that would be absolutely idiotic to do with a member of organized crime. He just run away, right? Yeah, so I refused to do that.
And D'Amato knew that, you think?
Yeah, D'Amato knew it. I revealed it. Wasn't going to do any favor for him. I mean, do I think he was a good senator in many respects? Absolutely right. But you asked me to do that, and I'm going to blow you out of the water.
So Cuomo.
I thought Pataki was too close to him, would be controlled by him. Turned out that Pataki is an honest man. He wasn't. I was wrong about that. But D'Amato was not exactly a guy that you wanted around the new, inexperienced governor, who also, at the time, didn't seem to be terribly well briefed on the issues facing New York. And Cuomo, on the other hand, would have been someone that would have understood the terrible problems we had at the time. And I had to make a difficult choice. And I've never really thought that my party enters into it at all. The first question is, are my people, then my party? And it would be much better for my people, I believe, that D'Amato not attain that kind of power.
Mark asks, and you may or may not want to answer this, some conversations are private, but he asks if Eric Adams has ever sought out your advice or guidance as the mayor.
He has not. He hasn't, even though when I ran for re-election in 1997, he not only endorsed me, but he said I was a much better mayor than David Dinkins, which he'd like to forget that he said then.
And what was his role in 97?
He was in charge of a group called 100 or 1,000.
So he's been politically active for a while.
He was never a cop. He was always a politician. I mean, he was a cop. He was a captain, but he was the head of 100 blacks in law enforcement, or 1,000 blacks in law enforcement. And he spent most of his time, ginning up problems so that he could be important.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember an arrest that he made.
I mean, whatever think of it.
Nor does he ever talk about any arrest that he made.
Well, he
certainly was not considered to be an exceptional police officer during the 8 years that I was mayor and he served in the New York City Police Department. Or did he do anything noteworthy that now he can, maybe I missed it. But what I know him for is coming up with specious complaints about treatment of people in the department, when during that period of time, the department, and I was the beneficiary to some extent of this, but I accomplished it, went from being a majority white police department to a majority nothing police department. In other words, we have pluralities in the department, but there is not majority white. And our police department history of problems every year that I was mayor went down, despite a few cases in which the typical liars like Al Sharpton and others tried to create tremendous problems. I'd also note that I never had a single riot in the city when I was mayor, and I took over a city that had had 2 major riots under David Dinkins. And we didn't have another riot again until 20 years later when we had another Democrat mayor. It's a very different situation. You look at these cities that are overwhelmed with crime, and the people that are suffering the most are minorities and blacks. And every single one of them has a Democratic mayor. Every single one has a Democratic mayor. I mean, some of them have Republican governors. So the dishonest propagandists will say, "Oh, well, Republican states, state my backside. The place that deals with crimes of the cities. It's the city that has the major influence on the level of crime, particularly the big cities. The big cities have much bigger and more effective or ineffective police departments than the state police. I mean, you think the Illinois State Police polices Chicago, or is it the Chicago police under the Chicago mayor? Police are terrific, but if the mayor second guesses them, if the mayor holds them back, if the mayor is inconsistent in his support of them, if they pass ridiculous laws like the Democrats have here and letting people out on bail, so that you got 8,000 criminals walking the streets that would have been in jail when I was the mayor or Bloomberg. Of course, you're going to have people getting slaughtered and killed. And in our case, this year, we have a slight reduction in murder, but we have a 31% increase in crime. And heck of a record for a mayor who ran on a law and order. We've got more crime than we did under de Blasio. And the subways are nobody wants to ride on them because they're so frightened.
Light Marker asks, Mr. Mayor, it was hard to support Mr. Guardian Angel, a.k.a. Curtis Sliwa, for New York mayor because of his dislike for President Trump. Do you know Curtis?
I know Curtis very well, and he's a very, very good friend of mine, and we disagree about Donald Trump. But he'd have been a much better mayor than Eric Adams, and we wouldn't have the crime that we have if we elected him. I'm not a knee-jerk supporter of anyone. You take on balance, Curtis Sliwa would have been a much, much better mayor for this city, despite his opposition to Donald Trump. On that, we disagree. I don't know how mature or immature you are, but when you think you're going to 100% agree with someone, then you're being a child. You don't 100% agree with anybody. In fact, I don't 100% agree with myself because I think.
Michelle, well, General Lee says, I'm 49 years old, and Rudy was the best mayor, and New York City was safest when I was a teen and he was mayor. That's from General Lee. Michelle asks, what's your...
General Lee?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess he's from New York, but his name is General Lee, which is interesting because...
I'm surprised they haven't required him to change his name.
But General Lee attended West Point, correct?
I think you mean the General Lee, the head of the civil, the Southern Army.
Yeah.
I believe he was first in his class at West Point.
Wow. So he attended, which is in West Point's close to New York City for our viewers from around the world.
There used to be a statue in there.
Used to be. I can't imagine that's still around.
I'm saying used to be. I haven't.
Who knows? Maybe.
But I haven't really read about it being taken down. But it might have been taken down quietly.
And that's like a complicated, somewhat complicated.
I really don't understand what all this name changing. Why the Democrat Party doesn't change its name? I don't understand it. I don't understand these hypocrites. They want you to change General Lee. They want you to change Abraham Lincoln. They want you to change Thomas Jefferson. They want you to change James Madison. None of them had as much to do with slavery as the Democrat Party. It was the party of slavery. For decades. The party of racism for decades after that. And you want to carry that moniker, the same moniker that was being used in defense of slavery, in defense of the Civil War, in defense of Jim Crow, in defense of or against the Civil Rights Bill? I mean, if you're not into this name stuff and you realize that history is history, that's a different thing. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily believe you had to change the name of the Democratic Party. You can evolve and change. But the people who think this way, there's nothing that has more of an association with slavery than the Democrat Party. No institution.
Kevin asks, well, he says and then asks, you can judge a mayor on how he treats, you can judge a mayor on how street vendors are treated. Is that true? How street vendors are treated. So I think he's referring to, what was your position on streetcars? So right now, for example, you have on a lot of corners. I know
I'm not particularly in favor of street vendors.
So,
I think that street vendors are a sanitary problem, without any doubt. Even though you have a system for
the carts.
Yeah, even though you have a system for licensing them, there are so many of them, and there are so many other priorities in the city to license and deal with, that you're going to lose track of that, and you're going to have an awful lot of illegal ones that can operate, even if it is for days and days before they're caught. Even among the licensed ones, you have tremendous number of sanitary violations. Also, it depends on who we're talking about. So the legal ones, okay, I'm not in love with them, but I'm not against them either, as long as they operate legally. They pay their taxes. They keep a clean operation, and they don't cause problems. I am against the illegal ones because, first of all, they hurt the legal ones. Secondly, they hurt the legal restaurants that are paying taxes. And third, the illegal ones tend to be even more unhealthy and unsanitary than the legal ones. And there are a large number of illegal ones. It's impossible in a big city to really monitor a system like that. Third, if we're talking about the people that sell phony goods, they should every day.
I noticed that, Mayor, in
pick them
Midtown.
up and throw them out.
If you've been to New York, you'll find these people on the street.
People love it. They're getting robbed like crazy. I mean, most of them know they're not really getting a Rolex, but maybe 20% really don't. Number two, they're getting totally inferior goods. Number three, a lot of it's coming from China, by the way. And number four, those people are also, when they get a chance, they're grabbing your wallet. Who the hell do you think they are? Finally, they're taking that business from places that employ people, give them jobs, pay taxes, make it possible for us to help the poor in the city. You know, somebody's got to pay the bills. Democrats don't understand that. They think the money comes on trees because they're communists. I was never a communist, and I don't believe money comes on trees. I got to collect the taxes. Those people, particularly the illegal ones and the ones selling knockoff goods, they don't pay any taxes. And they're taking business right out of, I mean, one of the ways I brought Harlem back is to get rid of the illegal vendors. I threw them out. The Charlie Rangels and the David Dickens never had the guts to do that. I threw them out.
Threw who out?
The illegal vendors that were all along 125th Street, so that no national chain would even go to 125th Street.
Because they had people selling illegal stuff.
Yeah, and who's going to come into the legal store to buy the T-shirt if you can buy it, and the illegal stuff at half the price?
So what'd you do?
What did I do?
Yeah.
I got 1,000 cops, and I went down there one night, and I just took everything they had.
You said, Lee, get out of here.
I just took it.
You took this. You said you took the stuff. It was confiscated. It was
if
illegal.
they wanted it back, they could apply for a license at 116th Street, run by a mosque that licensed them, and a few of them went there and developed nice, legitimate businesses. Most of them went someplace else
to do it illegally.
Yeah, same thing I did with homeless people. I told them you can't sleep on the streets.
What?
You can't sleep here.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice.
So what did you do? What did they do?
I'll take you with me, and we can go to the shelter, and we can evaluate you, and we can figure out just why the hell you're sleeping on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously there's something wrong here.
So there were shelters.
Of course, there are shelters now.
Yeah. So people that have nowhere.
Except the shelters are overwhelmed now because Adams made this a well-known sanctuary city and invited all these people here. I mean, people he gets angry at, who is it, Abbott or DeSantis, for sending them here. He's been inviting them here from the time he was running for mayor.
What about homeless vets?
There are so many homeless people that the homeless vets are not given any kind of special attention. If anything, they're probably treated horribly. But I mean, homeless people shouldn't be treated horribly. Homeless people shouldn't be on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, if your
Some of
brother,
them don't want to be in a shelter.
if your brother was on the street, what would you do? Go out there and give him money to stay on the street?
You go to San Francisco, Mayor, and these are Democrat-run cities.
If you had to, you grab by the back of the neck and you take him to a doctor.
Democrat-run cities, they have homeless people living in the streets, and they claim to be the party of the poor.
No. You hate
claim to
people
be
if
the
you do
party
that.
of the poor.
You're
the
a
party of the working man.
mean person. If you're a mayor and you can go down the streets of your city and watch people live on the streets, there's something mean about
Washington, D.C. right now, Mayor, and that's a place I've lived on and off.
Democrats don't love people.
In the middle of downtown.
They wouldn't have tolerated these ghettos and this guy for years and years and years if they really cared about poor people.
I mean, this was New York before you. People tell me
the biggest canard of the last 50 years, which I grew up with, was that the Democrats were the party of the poor. The Democrats are the party that likes to create the poor so they have a dependent electorate because they are essentially socialists and communists, and they want to direct you. They want the state to direct you, and they want you to be dependent on the state. Republicans, at their best, are people who believe that we have to help you help yourself. The best thing I used to say I could give a young person was the work ethic. If I can give you the work ethic, I know you're going to be able to take care of yourself. Then we can start working on everything else. I used to require in this city that to get welfare, you had to work. And I used to tell people I do that because I love you. I could very easily just give you the money and not worry about you and say, become dependent, waste your life away. Now, Biden gives people so much money they don't have to work. That's literally true. I mean, there are studies all over the place about how much money people get for not working. Our problem is that we can't get enough workers. I mean, the work ethic is something that is, I'm not enough of an expert on this, but I do think it's taught. I'm not sure it's necessarily nature. I mean, I don't know that we're born wanting to work.
Especially in America.
I mean, we're born, we can go either way. We can go either way. And it really depends on what we experience as young people. So I grew up in a family where the idea of not working just didn't exist. Everybody worked.
What did you do as a kid?
And if you were out of, if I newspaper delivery, work for a pharmacy, a whole bunch of stuff. But it wasn't even so much what you do as a kid. It's what you see around you. You know, you see your father working. You see your mother at home as a housewife or working. You see your uncles working. You see the guy next door working, the other guy next door working, the guy across the street working. It's not even in your mind that you're going to spend large portions of your life on welfare.
That's
now,
amazing.
if you end up that way, then if you have that work ethic, you fight like hell to get off welfare. Or you just lay back and go into a second generation or a third generation. Imagine a third generation of welfare. You never saw anybody work. What do you expect? And you want that kind of social policy? That's the social policy of Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. And it's called socialist. It's called communist. It's called Marxist. And I don't know why we just don't call it for what it is. And if we let it extend any further, we're going to ruin this great country.
Thanks for joining us, America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Just a few minutes left. We're just a few days away from Christmas. Michelle wants to know, what's one of your favorite Christmas memories from being a kid growing up? A
good one or a bad one?
Good. I mean, if there's a bad one that stands out, let's hear it.
Oh, my goodness.
But...
Yeah, my uncle was a New York City firefighter. He was injured twice, terribly. One time it was right on Christmas Eve. And he was in the hospital for months and months and months and months. And it's one of the reasons I think why I love policemen and firefighters so much. My mother used to take me to visit him, and he was in extraordinary pain. As I said, he almost broke his back. And all he was talking about was going back to work and praying to God that he'd be able to go back to work. And he ended up being on the fire department for 27 years. And he ended up a captain. I think that was formative for me as a human being. So the pain my uncle went through, I benefited from. Happiest memories, oh my goodness, I guess it's your parents and They were not. They were poor. They weren't deadly poor, but they were. I think you'd say they were lower middle class. But I
bet you didn't feel that way growing up, though.
I didn't feel that way at all. I felt like a little prince, and
that's when you know you had a good childhood.
And they would make Christmas magical for me, which I tried to do for my children. And now my little Grace is going to have her first real one. She actually had her first one because she was born right before Christmas last year. But of course, she didn't know it. But now my little Grace is going to have her first Christmas. And she was here last night walking. She's now walking because she's 1. And it's so funny to watch her walk. And oh, gosh, it's the best part of your life.
It reminds you of when Andrew was.
Andrew.
And then when Carol's daughter.
Andrew never walked. Andrew began running and never stopped. The minute Andrew began walking, he began running. I took Andrew to the emergency room 3 times in the first 4 years of his life. The third time I took him, they thought I was beating him. I was the U.S. attorney then. They said, Mr. U.S. Attorney, this kid comes here so often. What do you do? I said, I can't. He runs around the place. He jumps on the things. He falls down. You got to go tackle him. He turned out to be a wonderful young man, a wonderful man, great father. One of the most beautiful things is watching your son be a good father. He loves that little girl so much. He takes such good care of him. She gives him such big. She loves the mom too. His wife, who's my daughter-in-law, is like my daughter. I don't have this distinction. Daughter-in-law. I have 2 daughters and a son. And my daughter Z is a wonderful, wonderful mother. That little girl is so lucky to have them as parents. And that's the beauty of life. And that's what Christmas is about, except for one other thing. Don't forget what it's really all about. It's all about God becoming man in order to save you from your sins and show you a way that you can overcome your sins and motivate you as much as you can to try to follow that way, knowing that you're not going to be able to do it completely, but also knowing that he loves you. And when you fail, he's the first one to forgive you if you just ask him. That's what Christmas is about, really. Christmas is about the birth of Jesus, who, if you are a Christian, is the Savior and God. And if you're not, he's one of the greatest prophets, one of the greatest teachers. If you're not Christian and you don't believe in the spirituality of it, if you follow his lessons for life, you're going to be a heck of a good person. You can't say that for all spiritual leaders, can you?
Shout out to Robert Geisky in Michigan.
Wouldn't you say that Jesus Christ was the human being who had the most impact on this planet? Tell me who. Tell me who had a bigger impact on this planet than the Son of God. You're not gonna find one. Every corner of the earth, there are Christians. Every corner of the earth, his gospel is preached. Every corner of the earth, next Saturday night at midnight, wherever you are, they're going to read the Christmas gospel, huh? And they're going to celebrate the birth of Jesus. And even the ones who don't exactly know what they're celebrating are celebrating the birth of Jesus. So I would give some thought to the spirituality of Christmas as well, or the ethical dimension of it. I think you can derive a great benefit from Jesus, whether you are a believing Christian or you're whatever you are. I learn many things from religious leaders of all different kinds. There are many great religious leaders. There are some phony religious leaders. People use religion as a way of conning people. But there are very, very great religious leaders, not just Jesus. Jesus is just a preeminent one. And in my view, preeminent because he's God.
Well, thanks for joining us. You can go to rudygiulianics.com. That's rudygiulianics.com. Catch all the mayor's podcasts and so much more. Mayor, this hour, the fastest hour on the internet, is already up. Do you have a closing message for folks? Of course, we'll see everyone again tomorrow, same time, same place.
Yeah, the fact that we can do this and talk like this, and not just me, but all of my colleagues who are defying the censorship that's imposed on us and going around it and giving you the messages and the information that's kept from you. I feel like we've turned a corner. I really do. And I give a lot of credit to Elon Musk for helping us do that. I think we've turned a corner. I think we're fighting back. I think we're beginning to restore the First Amendment, our right of free speech. We haven't done it yet. I'm still prohibited from practicing law because of the things that I said. So the things that I said, nothing I did. And I'm prohibited from doing it by a bunch of lawyers, the Bar Association. Instead, they should be thanking me for being the one who brought out the criminality of Joe Biden. You never would have known about that if it wasn't for me. But it's exactly the reason why they're trying to shut me up. So I think we're turning the corner. I've got great hope. I hope that my Republicans settle this issue with Speaker McCarthy or Scalise or Jordan. But I think we can expect a lot from them in terms of restoration of free speech, restoration of freedom of religion, and restoration of the truth, which has been destroyed by the Democrats. It's been destroyed. Words don't mean what they mean anymore. We're living in the times of George Orwell. We're going to get out of it, though, because this is the greatest country on earth. And we'll go back to one thing that we'll end with, and that is because our rights, the rights that we're fighting for, come from God, not government. Thank you. God bless America. And an early Merry Christmas, but hopefully we'll talk to you several times before